Thank you. Recording? All right. Okay, so I'm going to go through this as quickly and efficiently as I can. We've been in contact really since a year ago. Our idea was initially to change our fees for the 2019 fair, but the timeline shrank and we just weren't able to get everything done. We are going to the Board of Supervisors on the 28th to ask for their approval of these proposed fees. So keep in mind that these are still a work in progress. Your comments today, the comments next week, anything that's emailed or phone called to me, we will try to incorporate that into our proposal. Ultimately, though, our goal is to get it done for the 2020 fair on another quick timeline. After the January 28th date, there will be a public input process. And so that's another opportunity for people to deliver comments. Hey, you made it. Welcome. To deliver their comments directly to the Board of Supervisors. We just had some vendors walk in. Thank you for joining us today. Have a seat. So we're doing this simulcast. We have people on video chat from some food vendors that couldn't make it here today. But so there's going to be a little bit of yeah, all right. And this is our first one, so just keep that in mind too. We will have a time at the end for questions, but for the flow of things, I would like to just to do the presentation, let you guys know what changes are being enacted, and then we'll take any questions and input after that. Okay, so to launch into it, the presentation is very simple. It's why are we changing our fees and what are the fee changes? So can't get much more basic than that. I'm still trying to find the exact date, but as far back as 2008, we had the exact same fees that we had for the 2019 fair. So all of the vendor fees, all of the admission for the fair has been the same for over a decade. I thought maybe it was 2010, but in doing more homework, it turns out that the fees even predate that. And so obviously in that time, the cost for goods and services has risen. We also feel that specifically to food vendors, we are trying to align our system with that of the kind of more industry-wide, and it's not across the board, but far more charge a percentage for food than don't. And so our idea is to align ourselves. We also looked at what other fairs do for their commercial vendors, for their outdoor vendors, for their nonprofits. So we did take into account similar fairs in our area, both in terms of geography and attendance. You know, we have in the fair industry, we actually have one of the larger size fairs at 40,000 attendees over those 4 days. We are one of the larger ones. So we did compare with like fairs in a similar demographic. The fee changes are broken down in this presentation. We're going to talk about deposits. We'll talk about the commercial vendors, which includes indoor, outdoor, and midway, nonprofits. Then we'll get into the complicated stuff with the amusement vendors and food. And then there's a few miscellaneous fees towards the end that we'll talk about. All right, so right now, your deposit for any vendor is a $100 non-refundable deposit that goes towards the final balance. So it's not really a deposit as much as it's I guess it's holding your space. So in that way, it is a deposit, but it goes towards your balance. So there's nothing. We spend over $6 million renovating the grounds, and we got a lot of results from that. And one of the pitfalls we want to avoid is kind of what happened with fairgrounds, where people would stake in, and then after the fair we'd patch the asphalt, and then sooner or later you have that sea of uneven asphalt everywhere. So similar to that, we want to make sure that our fairgrounds at the end of the fair are left in good condition. Among other violations that I will talk about in the next slide, but right now it's a $100 non-refundable deposit that goes to the final balance. We are going to propose that commercial vendors pay a $250 deposit and nonprofit vendors pay a $100 deposit, which would be refundable. And what that would do is it allows the fair to protect its assets, as well as to make sure we are putting on the best event possible for our patrons, for our guests. In that way, one of the violations that we'll talk about is, packing up early. We see that every year. every year, Monday, 2 o'clock, things start slowing down, so boxes get packed, and we understand, and we don't mind tidying up and organizing so you guys can get out of there. We all want to leave, but there have been vendors that have completely left, and we want to make sure that we are able to hold them accountable for not following the rules that are in the contract that every vendor signs that says you have to be there until 4 o'clock on Monday. So that's just an example of what one of those violations could be. There is a cancellation policy associated with that as well. 90 days before fair, you would get 100%. 60 days before, 30 days before fair, 25% of that, and then less than 30 days, there would be no refund. The deposit would be due at the contract. And as of this morning, when I was talking to our finance department, the idea we're floating around is that the deposit check would be its own separate check that would not get deposited unless there were violations. So it'd be just basically held in a safe, in a secure location in our safe, available if we need it, and hopefully we do not need it. That's as of today. Now the logistics and the procedures might change as we move forward this process, but that is what it is as of this morning when I spoke with our finance department. Here are the violations that we are proposing. Again, this is as of right now. We may amend these both in terms of what they are and the cost, but this is what we're proposing right now. We have check-in windows for all of all vendors, and when vendors are missing those check-in windows, that requires extra staff time. People who are previously scheduled to leave have to stay extended times because we want to make sure everybody gets in by Friday morning at open. So that will be one of our violations. Again, packing up, leaving early. Any damage to the venue, so if oil spills or a divot comes out or something happens, $50 per hour plus materials, or if we have to contract out, it'd be the amount of invoice plus 20%. One of the things we've been trying to do at the Coconino County Fair is go more green, so to speak, with especially when it comes to more, I think, food vendors and the trays and the serving boats and utensils and things like that. Getting away from styrofoam. And while we have had a lot of success, we want to kind of enforce that a little bit more. So again, using unapproved items that are especially listed out in the contract would come at a cost. Dumping waste in the gray water, we haven't gotten to yet, but I know in my emails I've mentioned that the food vendors would be going to a percentage that would require reconciliation and signing up to reconcile with our office, turning in Z tapes, making sure you are accounting for all bills. So in changing the system, we are trying to create a partnership, but we also don't want to leave ourselves vulnerable. We want to make sure that we are finding good partners and want to be able to have something to hold people accountable if they decide to not follow the rules laid out in the contract. And the last one being selling items not allowed via the contract. We have reserved the right to remove items from food for years and years and years. We have not enacted that right. As we move to a percentage, our goal is to have fewer food vendors and to make sure there's less duplication in our food. We want to make sure there's the right amount for our 40,000 guests, but that we don't have 4 ice cream vendors, or in the past we've had upwards of like 5 lemonade stands, and so part of that process is going to be if there's a vendor that wants to come on that's has lemonade, but we already have lemonade, we would ask them not to sell it. If we walk around and we see that they are selling a lemonade, that would be a violation. The violations, vendors would be notified on the spot with a form that would give a form given to the vendor, a form for their file. That way it's no surprises. We're not trying to surprise anybody. We're trying to keep everything transparent on the up and up. And so you would be notified immediately if something were to happen. Whew. That was a long one. Ooh, way too fast. Sorry, guys. Now it's working well. Here we are. All right. So the first commercial non-food vendors, so the indoor spaces, and I haven't looked at the guest list. Has anybody else added? So we have 2 food and a nonprofit vendor here today. I can go quickly through some of these. We are looking at proposing a $50 increase for our indoor space across the board. One thing you'll notice on all the slides, I hope, is that we are giving the first electrical hookup for free as part of this new simplified way of doing things, and also to give some added value, because we realize raising fees isn't fun for anybody. No one wants to have their pockets shortened. So we are including the first electrical hookup across the board to our vendors. Non-food vendors in our outdoor standard area, those are, again, commercial vendors who are just out there in that area in the northwest part of the quad with our nonprofits and most amusements. We are looking at a 50-cent increase in square footage on up to 400 square feet, 50 cents on more than 401, but we are including that first electrical hookup. Midway goes up 50 cents as well, except for if you want to do more than 401 square feet, that goes up by a full $1. Our justification being that is premium space, and we want to make sure that we diversify for our guests. And so if somebody is growing with us, which we encourage always, it would come at a premium cost in that regard. Again, up to 400 square feet, which really is very few of our vendors, if any, on the Midway. All right, nonprofit early bird, we do have them represented in this room here today. Up to 400 square feet goes up 50 cents, and then a quarter on more than 401. We are looking at a limit of 600 square feet for any one nonprofit vendor. That again is we have limited space out on the grounds out there, and we want to make sure that we can bring in as many vendors as we can, amusements, outdoor or otherwise. And so this will help us be able to diversify our offerings. Again, the first hookup free. Amusement vendors are currently on a percentage. We are proposing to move them off of a percentage and move them more into a flat rate. What we found charging a percentage, when I got here, there wasn't a lot of rhyme or reason, to be honest with you, with the amusement vendors and how we reconciled that. And in talking with them, they aren't set up for Z tapes, and a lot of them operate with an apron or something. And so, long story short, we are looking to move them to a square footage, but we wanted to be fair based on amusements being a lot larger. They can't be held to the same standard as other vendors, and so we tried to make it a palatable amount that is actually very comparable to what amusement vendors have been paying over the last few years. So we looked at. Not only did we look at other fairs, but we did an in-depth audit of our fair and what it could cost. And that's at the bottom of each of these slides. You'll see that we're not looking at the county isn't looking to rake in the money for this. We're just looking to help cover the costs of running this event. Food vendors. And this one, so the food vendors is 2 slides. This one is the current system, where food vendor fee is $4 per square foot and then $17 for electrical. What we are proposing is it's a guarantee against a percentage, and it's based on the frontage. So where are you serving out of? If you're serving out of a space that is 10 feet or fewer, you would pay $500 with your contract. You would then turn in your Z tapes every day or the morning after. So Saturday morning, you would turn in Friday's Z tapes to our front desk. We put them into an Excel sheet. We account for them. And then at the end of the fair, once you take your gross amount, deduct your $500 that you already paid, and then you pay 18% off of that. So in talking with a lot of other fairs, that is fairly standard. The percentages change from fair to fair, but we feel with our attendance and potential for growth, we feel that 18% would be a fair amount for the guarantee. And as another example, if you're serving out of a space from between, I guess that would be 11 to 20 feet, that'd be $750 you would pay as your guarantee. Once you make $750, the percentage kicks in. Now, if for some reason it rains all 4 days of the fair and you paid $750 to be here, and according to the Z tapes and according to what we've seen, you did not make your $750 back, you don't owe us anything else. And we will do better on our part to make sure that you are able to earn your business year. We want to make sure that we are, again, it's about partnerships, and it's about creating a relationship with our food vendors, really with all of our vendors. But I think the food vendors, people come to the fair, we see it, they come in, they go for the food, the turkey legs, the funnel cakes, and of course the livestock and carnival and all that. But we want to make sure we're creating a really, you come to an event, you're going to eat, and so we want to make sure we're creating a really good partnership there. Again, electrical will be the first, will be free on the first hookup. Miscellaneous vendor fees. Now we are raising the cost. So we, again, did that $6 million renovation project on the grounds. A lot of that was infrastructure and electrical and utility. What we have seen is a rising cost in our APS bill, for especially during those that 2-week period of the fair. So we are estimating that the cost from $17 to $25. Again, that would be after your first free one. So if you only use one hookup, that you're perfect. Additional, it would go up to $25 for 110 or $50 for 220. Water hookup to $25. We've already started dabbling in the ice sales for the moving at $5. The last one is a credit card processing fee, and that one's still being worked out right now with our department. What that means is when you pay for your vendor spot, when we process a credit card on our end, there's a processing fee. And so really the fair is paying that processing fee because it's taken off of your balance. And that we're having the conversation right now is a lot of other county departments, a lot of other agencies, you'll see that you would have to pay that processing fee for using a credit card. Now, cash or check, there is no processing fee. So if you pay by those two means, you'd be fine. There'd be no extra charges there. So there is an alternate option. The credit card is really just kind of that fast and easy, and so it does come at a little bit of a cost. I don't know what the amount will be at this time. I just had a conversation with our finance department this morning about solidifying this for our next presentation next week, which would, if you attend this one, we'll put this on the internet, and then we'll put the second one up as well, probably just to make sure in case there are questions asked that you would want to know. But there may be a credit card processing fee, which is technically optional because you always have the option to pay cash or check. Our next steps, so we have an open meeting next week at 10:30, I want to say. We are going to the Board of Supervisors on January 28th to present them with our fair overview, as well as ask them to approve the proposed fees. And after that time, there's about a 60-day window where we have a public input process. So fees wouldn't be approved and official until potentially April 1, which is when we would be able to release the vendor application. So those of you watching or listening, vendor applications, we try to do it January, February. This year, it will likely be April, assuming this process continues to move forward, because we want to make sure that the fees account for the 2020 fair. So it'll be a late date for applications and a quick turnaround on our part to make sure we get our ducks in a row and get everything moving. So I'll after this unmute people and open this up to comments and questions. But if you do have anything, if you're watching this later on YouTube or on our website, email or call us with any comments, thoughts, anything we haven't considered in this process. We've tried again to do our homework and our due diligence, but we sometimes you miss stuff, and so we'd love to know what your thoughts are on this process. And now, there's a little chat. That's cool. Ask questions here. Thanks. Hi, Cynthia. Okay, so we have 2 vendors on the virtual meeting. Does anybody here have a question first? Anybody? Nothing on the chat.
Rick, can you hear me?
Hey, Mike. Yes, sir.
Question with regards to like events I do now. I have a tablet, and when the customer comes up, I put in either it's a cash or a credit card. So is that acceptable, or you still need a receipt? Because basically I bring in the tablet the next morning, show yourself or whoever, here were the cash sales, here were the credit card sales. and then email it, then I email it to you or your accounting people so they have a record. So would that be acceptable, or would you still want a Z tape?
So, and Mike from Sally's Barbecue asked about using electronic methods of payment, like a Square app or something, and using that. And so, yeah, Mike, you would be able to email us your electronic record through that app, instead of turning in a physical Z tape.
Okay, so i.e. in the morning, just go to your office, show the tablet, and then email the sales from the previous day. That would be acceptable?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, we want to keep with the times. We know not everybody does paper anymore, and so if there's we know there's solutions out there for you to be able to electronically give us the records of that day sales.
Right. Okay.
Oh, the Wi-Fi is weak on the fairgrounds. It's hard to process if Z tapes will be required. Okay, sorry, we have a question here. The Wi-Fi is weak on the fairgrounds. It is hard to process credit cards. If Z tapes will be required, we need to make sure the Wi-Fi will be improved. That's that's a great comment. It's something we've been working toward for the last few years. I don't unfortunately have an update for you at this time as to where we are on the Wi-Fi project. I understand your concern and will make sure I speak with our facility staff and county department to see if what we can do to improve Wi-Fi. We have a Wi-Fi that is in our commercial building that is used seasonally. That's something we've identified as a potential. But as I've said in those vendor letters that we send out every year, that we understand Wi-Fi is a problem. Now, one thing we are working on, and what's the, do you know what the live date is on the tower? Okay, so down the pike, we are getting a cell phone tower put out right at our fairgrounds, so that we will improve cell reception, which would hopefully also help with the sales aspect of it. But we don't have a timeline on that just yet. But that is in the works. Contracts being negotiated, so that is something we're moving on right away. Meanwhile, I will continue to bang the drum for the Wi-Fi. It's something we've requested, and we'll do what we can to make that happen. I understand that concern. For early bird vendors, we have early bird cutoff date for applications is usually I believe May 31st is the cutoff for early bird. Now, nonprofit vendors have until it's the fair time, but early bird, and that's more for Coconino-based commercial businesses. So if you're an arts and if you sell your jams and you want to be a vendor at our fair and you're in Coconino County, you get the nonprofit rate instead of the commercial rate, basically. So it's those that are selling commercial have until May 31st, but other vendors, really it's just approval as they come in until we get down to the fair, until we run out of space. Are there any other questions from those in attendance? Any clarifications, anything I can help shed some light on? Good, okay, good. Wonderful, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, we went into this with a lot of intention, a lot of work, a lot of research, and so and this is part of that process, is making sure that you guys have the opportunity to hear it from us and then let us know any concerns you may have, anything you see as something we didn't consider. And so I appreciate you guys coming today and letting me know that. Mike, any questions again?
Yeah, one more. In terms of non-competitive, where you'd mentioned, Ricky, that you're going to definitely work on that. Do you have any idea at this point as to how many, I guess, vendors you're going to allow, as opposed to, let's say you had 40 last year? Are you looking to cut it down to 30, for instance, or what are your thoughts on that?
A great question, Mike. Yeah, for our food vendors, our goal is to cut down on food vendors. Like I mentioned, we want to eliminate as much duplication as is reasonable for our large attendees, and then hopefully we can eliminate some by striking menu options that still allow us to have a variety and the maximum number of vendors. But we have for many years seen that we are flush with food, and so we are looking to cut down. We don't have a number in mind. We're
Right.
more concerned with our offerings. What's our menu look like? What's our
Yeah.
mall food court and so we don't have a hard number, but realize that with this change will come cuts in our food vendors, and we just will have to work with that as it happens.
So I'm assuming then if you have a vendor, i.e. last year sold 25 items type of thing, you'll be looking at cutting his menu down there that's non-conflicting to other vendors. Would that be right?
Yes, that would be fair to say that we would be looking at people, we would be looking at all vendors. We look at vendors on a yearly basis with the vendor application. That's why it's super important to send in those, your menu along with your application so that we know what you're offering. But our goal would be to cut down if a vendor is coming in with, like you said, with 25 items and we already have 3 ice cream and we have 4 burgers and we have, or whatever the numbers are that we decide, we would ask them, okay, we would like you to be at their fair, but on the condition that you are not able to sell these items. And then from there, the vendor can decide whether or not it would be worthwhile. We just hope we can include as many of our partners as we can.
Great, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Message board or in person? I'm sorry, you did have a question, ma'am. Did you have a question? The vendor application should be available around April 1, assuming the process continues to move forward, which I have full faith it will. We go to the board January 28th, and then we have that 60-day window of public input. Once everything moves, once we get the final thumbs up and approval, we can then put out the vendor application. We want to make sure the vendor application is indicative of the proposed fees, and that way we don't have 2 different applications and expectations going around. Correct. Nothing to do with April Fools, but yeah, we might be able to. We'll do a trick application out there and see who catches it. Mike, I don't know if you heard the question. They're asking about vendor applications. It will be available April 1 is our expected date as of right now.
I did, thank you.
Okay, well, if there's no further questions at this moment, the slide with my phone number and email should still be on your screen.
Yes.
Email or call anytime. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. We can work out any other questions or comments. But we really appreciate you guys involved in the Coconino County Fair and hope that we continue to improve and get better.
Great. Thank you very much. Been very informative.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.